So, welcome everyone. I'm Hannah from the Bangor Public Library. I just wanted to say a quick hello and welcome. Thanks for joining us today for this presentation. This is another in our series of presentations that we co-sponsor with SCORE about different questions and bits of information related to entrepreneurship and business ownership. And today's presentation is going to be on starting your own business. So I'll hand it over to Donna to share a little bit about SCORE and introduce today's presenter.
Great. Thanks a lot, Hannah. So SCORE, if you don't know much about us, we are an entirely volunteer organization. We have about 120 people in the state of Maine who have signed up to be mentors. And we help people, whether you've got an idea and you don't know where to go next, to people who are in business but want some changes done or need some help from financial standpoint or whatever, marketing. And then we also work with people at the end, which is, can I sell my business or how do I exit the business? And so we really work with people through all of the stages. And I think the really nice part about SCORE is that, let's say you sign up after this presentation and say, wow, I'd like one-on-one coaching with a SCORE mentor. You technically could have 120 of us. So I'm working with a client right now, and I brought in a marketing SCORE person and I brought in a sales person. And so the three of us are actually working with the one client. So I think one of the real specialties that SCORE offers is we've got mentors who have really deep experience in almost all areas of the business, both from a technical standpoint and also financial marketing, so to speak. So I'd encourage you, if at the end of this you say, wow, I think I want some more one-on-one coaching, just go to score.org and ask for a mentor. So it's as easy as that. So with that, I want to introduce Dan Reed, who has worked for SCORE. How long now, Dan?
3 years, starting my
Oh,
fourth year here in a few days.
excellent. So I'll embarrass Dan right now and just say that he recently was named 40 under 40 by MainBiz, and kind of professionals to watch in the field. And Dan's done it all, including having his own business. So really looking forward to, I know that I will certainly learn something as well today. Dan, on with the show.
Thank you so much, Donna. I appreciate that. And I also want to say thank you again to Hannah and the Bangor Public Library. SCORE really values the series that we do and connecting with the community with the Bangor Public Library. And I just want to say thank you on behalf of SCORE Maine for that as well. Today, we're going to talk about starting your own business. We're going to cover quite a few topics with starting your own business. So please feel free to use the chat function if you have a question you want to get in there, and I'm going through the slides a little too quickly. Feel free to post it in the chat. We'll definitely get to the question either while I'm doing the presentation or at the end. And if you do have any other questions at the end, we can do Q&A, and feel free to unmute yourself, and happy to have a conversation about any particular topic that you'd like to talk about today. And with that, please feel free to type in the chat, let us know a little bit about yourself, a little bit about the business that you're going to start. It'd be a great way to kind of prime the engines, so to speak, about the different topics that we're going to cover today. And talk a little bit about the stage that you're in, whether or not you're starting the business or maybe you're just kind of in the idea phase. And any key questions that you hope to address today, and we'll see if we get to those through the presentation. Just for a little bit of housekeeping, you'll see slides that have a blue or a green lead at the top, and blue slides are going to be introducing content. They'll be very informational. Feel free to ask questions during these slides, and green slides are going to be more of a summary of recent discussion or recent things that we've talked about. And an opportunity to note items that might be relevant specifically to your business, a little bit of a short recap on the different topics that we're going to cover. Looks like we already have a few things coming through the chat. Reiki practice is very interesting. There are a lot of different areas to cover in regards to that as well. And the big thing when it comes to getting started with a business is knowing your why. This is based on a TED Talk given by Simon Sinek, as you can see on the bottom, called The Golden Circle. There's also a book called Start with Why, which is probably my favorite book. It's definitely in the top five. And really, what this means is, really what this gets down to is a lot of folks make decisions based on why, but their reasoning behind the decision might be more of a how or a what. So a lot of times folks might not exactly understand their underlying reasons for making a purchase. But if you understand why someone's buying from your business, really drill down into that why and what your value offer is and how it addresses that why, you can better understand how to position your business and better understand the things that you need to do to move your business forward. So we'll probably be talking about why quite a bit. And what that comes down to is, why do you want to do this? What about your passion around this subject makes you feel like you need to reach out and do this, or that you need to put it into the world? And then we get to how. How will you accomplish it? Yeah. What are the different specific tactics, or what is the strategy that involves different tactics that you'll use in order to make that happen? And then we have your what. What is your product or service? So these are the specific individual things from an end user perspective that people will buy into. For example, if you have a yoga studio, your what is probably yoga classes. You're providing yoga classes for the community. How you will accomplish that will probably be utilizing a space to provide community to folks. And your why might be that you're deeply involved and committed to a healthy lifestyle and a healthy community. So, what is a business? A business is typically a product or a service. It could also be an experience, and sometimes it might be more than one of those things. So a good example would actually be our yoga studio. It's a service of yoga classes, but you're also providing the experience of community. A business is full of processes. It has policies, equipment, capital, could have software or vendors or employees. These are all just different aspects of the business, or different arms that come together to make the cohesive whole that is a business. What is your role as a business owner? Your goal and your role is to raise funds that are needed to get a business to break even or make profit. Your goal is to sell a product or a service. Your goal is to build a team and to develop your processes and monitor your financial statements. So these are all of the things around a business that make a business healthy and successful. These aren't necessarily the act of running a yoga studio, but these are all the things that are required to make that yoga studio fiscally healthy and long-term viable. So what will your business eventually need? You'll need to know how much money is going to take to break even on your business. And basically what that means is, how much money did you have to invest in order for your business to start producing the same amount of money that it's taking in? And what are the processes that you need to develop to make that happen? Is there specific equipment or personnel that you might need in order to make that happen? Are there any particular vendors or pieces of software that you'll need in order to manifest that goal or manifest your product or service? And are there any policies that are needed for customers or for your team to make sure that your clients have a good customer experience, or to make sure that you're providing the highest quality product that you can? What are some of the resources that you have available to you that are at your disposal? Do you have the personal experience and the risk tolerance to make this a successful endeavor? Do you have a specific or unique talent or a set of skills that you bring to the table that folks might not be able to get elsewhere? And do you have the support around you in order to make this leap and take that risk? Everyone probably already knows this, but starting a business takes a lot of time, energy, health, and skills and money. These are the things that people typically think of when it comes to, what do I actually need when I start a business? These are kind of those first impressions. Of course, we've already covered several other things that might be useful, but these are the most immediate needs. So how do you plan on developing these resources? How do you plan on having enough money to get your business off the ground? Do you plan on borrowing that money, or do you plan on getting a more traditional loan, or borrowing from a family or friend? Or do you think you might be able to bootstrap it? Do you have enough family support for that? Do you have enough time available to actually execute the things that you'll need to make this business happen? If you're already working a full-time job, it can be very difficult to squeeze out the extra hours to also start a business. And do you have the right skills needed, or do you have to hire someone who might have the right skills for you to make this a reality? And to really kind of drill down into whether or not a business will be successful, the best way to do that is to really understand and focus on what do your customers want. So while you might have the skills and the money and the time to make a business, does that necessarily mean that business will see success? And the top reason that new businesses fail is they run out of cash, or there is no market need. And these, as you can see from this graph, those are at about an equitable or similar pace. What that means is the majority of businesses run out of money before they can become self-sustaining, or there wasn't a viable business idea there in the first place for the market that they're trying to serve. What this might look like, we see this a lot in the restaurant industry, especially in Maine, where there are quite a few restaurants in tight competition, especially in southern Maine. You see restaurants close quite often because they just couldn't get the money together to continue operations, or you see them close because there weren't enough people through the door. A lot of times that looks like the same problem, but it doesn't always have to be the same problem. And this really comes down to defining your customer's need. Are you actually solving the problem that you hope people are having? Are there enough people having that problem? Restaurant is a good example. People get hungry, but can you compete on price against folks making it at home versus the convenience of being able to eat out? What about your offering is going to solve it? Are you the best burger on the block? Are you not the best burger on the block? How do you prove that? Are people going to believe it even if you do have the best burger? Why will people buy from you instead of a competitor? Just because you have the best burger on the block doesn't mean you can compete with the convenience and price factor of McDonald's. And some people are going to make a buying decision based off of that. Does solving this problem interest you? Is it really worth your time to do that business? Are you more passionate about doing the business and solving that problem than you are concerned about the risk that failure might involve? And this gets to our customers. Who is going to buy it? Who will buy that burger? Is there a specific age range or gender or some other kind of a key identifier that will let you know if someone's more likely or less likely to purchase a burger from you? Are they the right income range or geographic area? A great example of this is if you produce a premium product or a high-end burger, then someone who is working class and they're looking for a very quick lunch so they can get back to work, that might not be a good fit for you. Are they at the right life stage or occupation? Or do they have the right set of goals and ideals that align with your business? A lot of times this relates to market research, and you hear it broken down as demographics or psychographics, or the hard demographics would be more like hard descriptors, things that you can't really change, like your age or your previous education. And then you have things like psychographics, which are more your preferences or your goals. So those would be things like liking iced coffee, and trying to break down who your customer is and what some of those different descriptors are, and what the common denominators between your customers are can really help you understand who would be good for purchasing your product and how you talk to that person. And that brings us to problems, solutions, and target market. Your value proposition, which is what we've been talking about, why exactly you would like to, what problem you're looking to solve, why you would like to solve it, and who needs that problem solved, really comes down to these three things: experiencing the problem, so someone having the problem, seeing a solution and being presented with a solution and understanding that it's going to be a good solution for them, and then seeing how big that target market is or how many people are experiencing that problem. And of those people who are experiencing that problem, how many of those people will utilize the solution that you're putting forward or really need the solution that you're putting forward. So what values does your business offer? As we mentioned earlier, we might have the best burger in town, but is it the best burger in town? Can you back that up, as you see at the bottom there? If you're going to use terms like only, first, best, or other kinds of, I would say, marketplace qualifiers, so that you're trying to determine your place in the marketplace, that can be a slippery slope. Sometimes it might be a little easier to go with values or solutions that are less self-targeting. So things like fun or fast or inexpensive. While it might not be inexpensive in relation to McDonald's, it could be inexpensive in relation to another local business. So when you're thinking about how to position your business and how to talk about what your solution is to the people who need that solution, you'll want to really understand what values it is that they think are worthwhile. Is inexpensive something that they really care about? In our example with a blue collar guy who's just looking to get a quick lunch, inexpensive and fast are probably the two things that he really cares about the most when it comes to buying his burger. If you're talking about someone who's taking their significant other out for a date night and they're looking for a better experience, it's probably going to be something more like quality or organic or Maine made. Do we have any questions so far? Kind of like a really quick introduction to target markets and value proposition. So when you're thinking about your value proposition, you really need to think about it from your customer's perspective and try to remove any language that you use. Like when you're thinking about it yourself and talking to yourself about your solution or your business or the thing that you're doing, you're very passionate about it. At least I know I am about my business. So you want to kind of remove yourself from the equation. Try to think about it from your customer's perspective. Don't use industry terms when you describe it. Think about it from very simple terms that someone outside of your business will think about it and use it in. What's knowledge that you have that your customer doesn't? And how do you take that knowledge out of the equation when you try to describe your business? And when you're doing that, it gives you a great way of learning how to describe your target customer. If you can think the way that they think, you have a good idea of how they'll perceive your business. You know everything about your business and they don't know anything about your business. So how you connect with that person with that in mind is very important. What product or service are you offering them? Do they see it as the same product or service that's being offered? What's the pain point that you're trying to address with them? And how is your offering better than their other options? And what emotions will your customers feel after the purchase? These are all different things that will really require taking a step outside of your own perspective in order to get good answers on. And if you already have a few folks who are customers or you've demoed your business or your product or service a few times, don't hesitate to go back to those folks and ask these kinds of questions, because that insight can be invaluable for how you connect with future customers. So here's some value proposition examples. A local coffee shop has the goal of helping local customers feel good and do good by selling artisanal coffee in a community-focused space. So we're looking for folks who probably don't have the time to make coffee at home. They want a higher quality coffee experience they might be able to produce at home, and they have a little bit more disposable income, and they also care about the local community. You're able to see a lot of insights based on for the kind of customer that you're looking to advertise to, if you have a good understanding of what that customer's value proposition is for your company. Amazon strives to be Earth's most customer-centric company. It's very easy to do returns. You get 2-day delivery on almost any product you can imagine, and you can shop from your couch. While it may not seem like that's a customer-centric perspective, in reality, it's so easy to use Amazon that it is. Walmart offers a wide selection of national brands at the lowest price point anywhere. I can definitely attest, at least in my opinion, Walmart has very, very low prices on almost all household goods. And that is really what they're trying to get folks into the store with. And while the customer experience at Walmart might not always be what we would hope or what we might receive from a local business, that local business can just never really compete on price. And then you have something like Whole Foods, which is their goal is to really provide a healthy, ethically produced, and very high quality food at a premium price. So you're looking for folks who, very similar to our coffee shop example, have more disposable income and they really care about their community or where their food comes from. So they have a value proposition where they're not really looking to compete with the folks who go to Walmart to shop for food because they have a completely different target market. So this goes back to this, and we have a quick second. Does anyone, if anyone is willing to volunteer for their own personal business, does anyone have an idea of how the problem they're looking to solve, the solution that they have, and who their target market is? I'm happy to go first. So I do marketing and strategy for small businesses. So my problem is, or the problem that I'm looking to solve is to help small businesses that need to connect with their customers. The solution that I provide is I help folks better understand that differentiation between how a customer sees their business and how they see their business, and how they can speak more to what their customer knows and what their customer sees. And my target market is small businesses that started off as passion businesses that turned into a full business. That would be one example. Does anyone want to put forward their own guess? All right, that's okay. Folks are still a little shy. That's all right. But that's something that I would really recommend. One of the key takeaways from today's workshop would be these three things. Understanding your value proposition through problem, solution, and target market. So always test your value proposition. Ask customers open-ended questions. Don't want to use leading questions, and try to really get them and ask them to think about it and provide a good example. Especially as a small business, a lot of times folks are very, very interested and welcoming to the idea of providing feedback, especially if you convey that as if the feedback is very helpful for you to make a better experience. People love to help small businesses, especially when it's quick and free. As you sell more, learn more about your customers. Your first customer is not going to be the same as your 5th customer or your 10th customer, but they might have something in common, and learning those common threads and the commonalities between customers is going to really help you speak to future customers and also narrow in on things like your marketing. You might find that you have multiple different kinds of customers, and that's totally okay. Not every business is a one fit for every kind of customer, but that means that you might also have different value propositions. So if you're seeing 2 different demographics of folks coming in, you might be addressing 2 different problems with your one solution. Your markets may also change over time, and your value proposition will need to change with them. Our yoga studio is a good example. I mentioned yoga earlier. things like COVID can happen, and that keeps people out of yoga studios, but that can allow you to do things like pivot to an online model. And being aware of how the market is affecting your value proposition and being reactive to that can be very helpful. There are some resources here as well for developing your value proposition. I gave the slides to Hannah, who can distribute them after the workshop if you would like to look deeper into this concept. So the next step after really understanding your value proposition, how you're going to talk to customers and what that really means is so now that you have a really good understanding of that, the next step would be building out your team. So who are the people involved that you really need to make that happen? A great start and one that I would always recommend is a SCORE mentor. So someone who you can bounce ideas off of and get a good perspective on your business and any ideas that you have. You might need an attorney who can help answer questions around questions around regulations that you might have as well. A banker, insurance agent, accountants. One that's incredibly helpful is business peers. So just other people who are also going through it that you can talk to about your problems. Uh, Much more helpful than I think a lot of people at the very start might consider. Trade organizations, really anyone who's not you, who you might need the help of to make this business happen. Uh, Depending on your business, there is a slew of different options for insurance and things to keep in mind. And that is also always going to change depending on the market that you're in and the services that you're hoping to provide. I would 100% recommend talking to your SCORE mentor about the different types of insurances that might be appropriate for your business so they can give you some guidance on that. In a similar capacity, being aware of relevant regulations, either at a municipal level or at a state or federal level, can be very helpful. Knowing whether or not you need to be licensed or whether or not you need to apply for a business license in your town is a good one. How to deal with things like sales tax, Social Security, any local taxes, whether or not your building might be up to code, talking to code enforcement. These are all things that you'll want to consider, especially if you have a physical storefront as well. Just think about who you'll need to add to your team and when. And as you scale up, if you decide to scale, what those different positions might be. Uh, Everyone tends to need general liability insurance, but is that the only kind of insurance you might need? Are there any local regulations that might be that you might run into, or state or federal regulations you might run into? There are also different ways that you can structure your business. So things like sole proprietor, or I think most people have heard of LLCs or limited liability corporation. There are also general partnerships and limited liability partnerships, C corps. S corps are really popular right now, which tends to be something that a larger business, but still on the small side, but a larger small business would eventually possibly move into. And an attorney can really help with that, or a SCORE mentor can really help with that. Are there any partnerships that you might need to make with other organizations? And what is the nature of that partnership? Or if you have another partner in the business, so you might have a business partner. Define the type and nature of that partnership, and that acts as the what if, and it can help with your organizational documents when you're filing them to insert exactly who is responsible for what into what percentage. And each partner should have their own attorney review it if possible. You'll want to determine your company name, establish your corporation. That would be the actual filing of the paperwork, which can take a little bit of time in Maine, as the Secretary of State is a little behind on filing LLC paperwork at the moment. Getting your numbers or your EIN or your state sales tax certificate. Basically doing any of the groundwork that's required to make sure that you're legally ready to operate your business. Most of these questions are typically things that you'll have a good understanding of before you get to this point, but it's good to make sure that you have a good understanding of what is legally necessary and required to actually execute and follow through on these plans. Typically, someone's not getting to the LLC filing paperwork and they don't know if they have a business partner yet or not. But it is a really good idea to have a good understanding of whose responsibilities and roles, uh, who has what responsibilities and roles as you file the paperwork, as you can file that on the paperwork. Uh, the next step is funding. This is one of the most difficult aspects of creating a business especially for the first time, and understanding startup costs and what break even looks like. Uh, it's probably more than you think. That is unfortunately true for the vast majority of businesses. As we mentioned in that slide earlier, 38% of startups actually fail due to not meeting a funding need. And one thing that's incredibly helpful for that is developing a long-term cash flow projection. And that's basically how much money you have coming in versus how much money you have going out over time. Where can you find funding? The most immediate place to find funding would be with yourself. Do you already have money to put into this business? Do you have friends and family that might be willing to provide some money to the business? And this can sometimes be seen as a bad idea. Friends and family are typically a lot less risk adverse than a bank would be, but then that is a personal relationship that you have a business stake in. Bootstrapping, which we'll talk about a little bit on the next slide. Uh, Grants or competitions, which are uh, very, I think the list here of a lot of work and uncertain is a great way to put it. Grants and competitions are not something that you would want to base your business's funding around. They're nice to have and not something I think the starting business should look at as a guarantee or a need. Crowdfunding, we see this a lot nowadays with things like Kickstarter. There are also things like bank loans or venture capital. Bootstrapping is one of the most common ways to start a business or to get a business off the ground, which is using your own personal funds to get the business started and then using income from the business to grow the business. It can reduce quite a few risks associated with the business, such as taking out a large loan and being liable for paying that back. It's much easier when cash needs are a lot smaller. It's much harder to bootstrap your business when you need a $50,000 piece of equipment. It's much easier to bootstrap your business when you need a space on a main street. It builds your experience with your target market so you can effectively test and refine your product as you're growing and scaling. And it can also help validate your concept if you haven't already done so, or it can revalidate your concept if you have done some validation and you're really hoping to take it to market. So it gives you the chance to try it out, adjust your pricing, adjust your product, and really hone in on your target market after you've already identified. Some of the different ways that you can bootstrap your business. The classic would be moonlighting, keeping your full-time job and building your business in your off time. You could also subcontract to someone already in the industry and slowly build your business out from there. Do things like product placements or pop-ups, or start with special events, or do something like the local farmers market. The idea basically being that you keep some form of stable income, at least in the beginning, so that you can help the business become self-sustaining when you hit that break-even point. Some questions you want to ask yourself. What are types of funding that might be viable for you? The majority of people, grants and competitions are not a viable option. So trying to keep that in mind and what would be a viable option. Might a simpler offering still offer customers value? So would kind of scaling back on your end product and providing a more streamlined process help reduce costs and also increase the number of sales to hit break even. Is there a lower risk or lower cost way to test the market without jumping in with 2 feet first? And can savings and bootstrapping get you to break even before you take out a loan? These are all really important questions just to make sure that you're reducing your personal risk when you go to start your business and really get the funding moving. And financial statements. These are some of the most difficult things for a lot of small business owners to start wrapping their head around in the beginning. You do not need to be an accountant to understand financial statements, but it does help significantly in risk management and making sure that you're making good decisions if you do understand your financial statements. This will be, in my opinion, it can be the difference between whether or not you're managing your business or if your business is managing you. You'll want to reconcile your books monthly, understand your balance sheet and your income statement, and at least get started on a statement of cash flow or a cash flow projection. That's something that a SCORE mentor can help with and provide some things like templates and tools around understanding as well. And there are links embedded in the document today as well to get a better understanding of those things. Starting your business plan. So after you have a good understanding of your value proposition, you know your target market, you have a good understanding of what you're going to do for funding, and you're getting out there and you're starting to do some evaluation on whether or not you want to get started with your business. A business plan would be the ultimate next step. It is a living document, and what that means is that a business plan isn't something to be followed necessarily to the letter. It's something that's to provide guidance and to be updated as the situation allows. So the business plan is meant to provide a strategic path forward and not necessarily a set of instructions. It can be a one-page business plan, or it can be up to 30 plus pages long. It really is as detailed as you need it to be for it to be a functional and working document. It's something that you'll want to make sure that you come back and revisit. I would recommend at least once a year, just to make sure that it is up to date and that you're executing everything that needs to be executed and nothing's falling through the cracks. And it describes the problem, the solution, and the market, as we were talking earlier, but it also describes things like the competition, the other people that you'll be in business against, your financial forecasts, and any team members that you might need. Your plan, especially if you're looking to get a loan or other kinds of funding from an institution, your plan will be looked over and by knowledgeable and skeptical folks who will provide feedback to you. And it's very helpful to provide objective data when relevant and to clearly state your assumptions. You never want to state an assumption as a fact in your business plan, not only because you don't want to lie to yourself, but also because folks might give pushback on that. And you'll just want to make sure that you understand the things that you're assuming versus the things that you know will happen. And who is a business plan for? Ultimately, the business plan is for you to make sure that you're providing yourself with guidance and strategy, but your business plan can and will be seen by other people, especially if you're looking for funding, such as a bank or investors, a business partner. If you have any employees, especially at a high level, your business plan can provide an outline and give them a level of understanding of why you're doing the things that you're doing, and really getting at that why that we talked about earlier and how that's so important. You might provide your business plan to trade partners or other businesses that you might partner with so that they have a good understanding of what your business does and how they fit into the equation. But ultimately, your business plan is for you. All right, so putting it all together, we covered quite a few topics today. We did so pretty quick, but to get them all together, what we're trying to do with starting a business is solve a problem. We're trying to understand who has that problem and what you can do about it. And what you can do about it, who has the problem, and what that problem is, all comes together as your value proposition. Your value proposition is the core thing that your business is hoping to solve. And you do that by testing a product, service, or experience, measuring the results, and then tweaking your outcome in order to better solve that problem. And this is the cycle of every business. Your value proposition will also include things such as your business plan, your financials, and all of those details. But this is really the goal that we're trying to create with starting your business. How do we solve a problem? Who has the problem? How do we talk to that person? How do we fix their problem? And how do we start it all over again? So conclusions, starting a business is a lot of work. There are a lot of different steps to it, and this is just the business of doing business. This isn't also including the thing you're passionate about. So the reason why you're starting the business and the thing you're actually selling to people. And I mean, it's basically taking on a whole nother set of skills in order to market and sell the set of skills that you're hoping to put out there. And with that, it might not be for everyone. And on top of that, to make sure that you're doing it the best, you really want to make sure you know your customers and your competition. But in reality, the real key component is knowing your why. So why do you want to do this? And why does someone else want to buy that thing from you? And of course, one of the most important things that I've mentioned today, SCORE mentors are absolutely amazing for helping at every step of this process. So if you don't have a SCORE mentor, uh, and there is a step of this process that was a little confusing, or maybe you're thinking, oh, well, I'm not sure if I really need that, I would really recommend sitting down with a SCORE mentor to talk about that and just getting that outside perspective. It's absolutely free service, so there's no reason not to. With that, do we have any questions on the content we've covered today? It was quite a bit really quick, so we're happy to break anything individually down.
And feel free to just unmute yourselves and speak up, you guys, or you can type into the chat if you prefer.
Hello, this is Houston. Um, on the concept of market research and identifying if there is a viable market in the area, what are some like general overview steps that can be taken? From, if you're just going into talking to people or if there are any other, things you can do to initiate the market research for that.
Good. It's a great question. I would say the biggest thing for initiating market research is just asking someone who's in your target market. They don't even have to be a customer. It could just be a friend that also fits the target market. And ask them questions. Ask them a lot of questions. Typically, people are very likely to and willing to answer these kinds of questions. I've done this quite a few times myself. But the biggest hurdle, I think, is typically actually asking that person if they're willing to answer the questions. It makes me very nervous to do that anyway, but it can be very, very helpful. An example of that is I was building out a yoga studio example for a different workshop that is on market research. So I asked a friend who does go to yoga classes a little bit of information, and one of the things that she mentioned is a lot of people will show up to their yoga class with iced coffee. So that's a pretty interesting psychographic point where if people are showing up with an iced coffee, then you know that folks who drink iced coffee are probably more likely to go to your yoga studio than not.
Boy, that's interesting. So the other thing I would add, Houston, and Hannah, feel free to jump in here, is that the Bangor Public Library has a tremendous resource in terms of market data. And you can, if you wanted to sell Chinese food, you could find out how many Chinese food restaurants there were within 50 miles of your area that you want to do business in. You could find out business plans and incredible pieces of information around that. So, Hannah, do you want to talk about your database that you have?
So anybody with the Bangor Public Library card can access our digital resources, and anyone in the state of Maine can get a Bangor Public Library card for free. And one of those resources is a database called Data Axle Reference Solutions. It sort of has two names. But as Donna said, it's both sort of an online white pages and yellow pages, which is often what we use it for, just to answer people's quick questions. But you can use the advanced search on it to do some pretty great research on, just as Donna was saying, kind of how many businesses within this particular theme or who provide this particular service are around a given geographic area. You can find information about those businesses, how large their staffs are, what their operating budgets are, and things like that. So it's a pretty great tool. You can use it from anywhere as long as you've got a library card. And I do
Uh,
see we've got a question in the chat from Sandy who's asking, could you elaborate on LLC versus DBA?
I will admit this is one of those areas where my knowledge is a little lacking, and I could definitely be a little better on that. LLC is a business structure, so it's a kind of protection, liability protection against essentially providing a layer of liability between yourself as an individual and your business. So if someone sues the business, they can't sue you directly. From my understanding, I'm
That's
definitely not an
correct. That's
expert.
correct,
Okay.
Dan. So a good example is if you were doing business as and someone sued you, you might lose your house as part of that. Whereas if you set up as an LLC, your private resources are very separate from your business resources. I'll just say that in most circumstances, we recommend that people do become an LLC. It's not overly complicated. We have, and I think Dan's got some clicks that you can use from this slideshow. There's some pretty simple steps about how you do that and the paperwork involved and those kinds of things. But very, very important decision on how you decide to incorporate yourself.
Yeah, and to add on to that, DBA is actually not a legal designation. It's just uh, allowing you to use a name that isn't copywritten. It's not actually a specific kind of filing for your business or a specific business structure.
Good point.
Do you have any other questions?
There are the things we haven't covered that you kind of came in wanting to know. Because Dan covered a huge amount of information in a short period of time, but you probably still have a couple of questions.
Oh, great question in the chat from Rebecca. How do SBA loans work? So SBA loan, it's actually a loan from your whatever local lending organization that you might work with. Just for this example, we'll say Bangor Savings Bank. You would go to Bangor Savings Bank and ask for a loan from Bangor Savings Bank. The bank would then make a determination whether or not they feel as though you are qualified for that loan. And if they feel that you come in slightly under qualification for a normal commercial loan, the SBA can step in as a guarantor for Bangor Savings Bank and basically provide up to 90% reimbursement to Bangor Savings Bank on the loan if the business fails. So the SBA is kind of more of a stopgap, and you're getting a loan from your local financial organization, not directly from the SBA.
Also, this is really important why you would want a business plan, although both Dan and I would both recommend a business plan is just a good way to kind of have a good place to organize your business ideas. You won't get in the door of a bank without having a business plan. So that's kind of the price of entry.
And the first two questions they're going to ask you is one for your business plan and two for your cash flow.
Well, if folks have more questions, I'll be sending out the recording and the slides from this presentation either later today or tomorrow. and I can include, the contact info for SCORE. I'm sure that Dan would be happy to help point people in the right direction to additional resources if you have more questions.
Yeah, I really appreciate lots of good questions today and a good group of people on the call. And we typically do these every month with different topics. We're going to take January off just because that's usually or December off because that's usually pretty busy. But we'll be back again in January. So be on the lookout for some of our other topics, which we hope will be helpful as well. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.